Hey, today I'm talking about 3 brand new movies that I've been highly anticipating, and the names of those 3 movies are Last Night in Soho, Antlers, and Army of Thieves. First up is Last Night in Soho. This is Edgar Wright's new film starring Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy. It also has Matt Smith and then some older actors that you would definitely recognize. I don't want to be very specific with the premise of this movie because it's Edgar Wright. It's really good. I definitely recommend this movie, and I think it's a bit more enjoyable if you haven't seen the trailers, because for me personally, I watched maybe 30 seconds of the first trailer and then avoided everything about this movie. I really did not know what was going to happen in this movie, besides that it was going to have lots of 60s vibes and the awesome actors that's in it, because I love Thomasin McKenzie, I love Edgar Wright. A movie with them together I knew would be just amazing, and I was correct, it was. I will say though, it's about a young adult who really loves the 60s, that vibe, and there's kind of some mystery elements to it too, and maybe gets a little bit spooky at times as well. It's just so great. Thomasin McKenzie does a fantastic job. She's such an incredibly talented actor. Like, it is a travesty that she was not at least nominated for an Academy Award for her performance in Leave No Trace, and I hope this film gets her like in front of more people, because she's gonna have an utterly incredible career ahead of her, because she's already had a great one and she's only 20 years old. Ugh. Anya Taylor-Joy also does great. She's wonderful. Really, all the actors were solid. I also love the color of this movie. It was so vibrant in its own thing. The soundtrack was wonderful, especially the song that Anya Taylor sang. Now, I didn't super connect to it as much as I have with some of Edgar Wright's other movies, but I still put it in the really liked category anyway. It kind of felt to me like the first time I watched Baby Driver. I didn't incredibly like that the first time. I just thought it was okay, but then the second time I watched it, I crazy loved it. I think this is a movie that on repeat viewings, especially when you get more disconnected from the trailers, people are going to appreciate this movie more, me included. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I definitely recommend it. Try to not watch any more trailers. Just go into it blind. You're in for a good experience. Also watch Leave No Trace, because it is amazing. Next up is Antlers. I have seen the trailer for this movie so many times. It was playing a lot before the pandemic, and then obviously got pushed because of the pandemic, and then they just were hard pushing that trailer on me for some reason. It's hard to say exactly what the premise of this movie is without giving away too much, but it's basically about this little dirty hick boy trying to live his life while there may or may not be some supernatural stuff that's potentially connected to Native American folklore going on in the background. And yeah, it was pretty good. I think the little boy did a really solid job. His whole aesthetic was great. I could smell him. Like, I knew so many kids just like him growing up in middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Kerry Russell did a solid job in the leading adult role, and it's always great to see Jesse Plemons. I love him so much. Incredible that he's my age, and I'm so excited for more of his career as well. He's just so talented, and he's great. I will also say that the scary, spooky stuff that happened in this movie worked really well, especially like the, how do I want to say it without spoiling anything? The really creepy, scary thing looks really creepy, scary. And like, it got me a few times. Like, there were a couple jump scares where I literally jumped hard to the point of like, I was kind of embarrassed, because I'm fairly certain the people behind me saw me, but it worked. Now, it wasn't the most satisfying of endings, but it did do what a good horror movie does. It's metaphorical, but the metaphor kind of seemed more tacked on. It's about abuse from parents, trying to go past that, which is a good message, but it didn't feel as integrated into the story as it needed to be. I don't know how they could have fixed it, but it just, yeah. But don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I put it in the quite like sections. You know, it's basically a 4 out of 5 for me. I know we just passed Halloween, but if you're looking for like a good spooky time, like, it's worth checking out. It's solid. And lastly is Army of Thieves. This is a prequel film to the Zack Snyder film from this year entitled Army of the Dead. There is a German safecracker in the zombie movie, and so this is his backstory. There are still some zombies in this movie, but they're not really the focal point. It's just kind of a little bit of set dressing. And it's basically just kind of about how he came out of his shell and got into the safecracking world. This was kind of a mixed bag for me. This character was easily one of the best parts of Army of the Dead, which, just to give you frame of reference, I actually really enjoyed Army of the Dead. It's textbook turn your brain off movie. Like, if you think about anything plot-wise in that movie, it crumbles like a paper towel. But if you can successfully turn your brain off, that movie is amazing. It's ridiculous, so over the top. That was an easy really like for me. But this one, I'm not exactly sure what doesn't quite work for me. There are parts of it where like, this was great, I really enjoyed what they're doing here, and there's no really like bad parts of the movie, but there's a lot of just like parts of the movie. Like, I kind of think it had to do with like editing / pacing, that just scenes would go on for too long and stuff like that. I don't think there were enough jokes. Like, there were some jokes, but it needed more. The humor didn't quite land for me. And there was also like some meta humor in there, and it felt kind of out of place because they just didn't do enough with it, and there really wasn't a big payoff to it. So that was a little weird. I didn't dislike this movie though. I kept it in the liked category. Definitely part of that has to do with Natalie Emmanuel. She is just crazy, crazy beautiful, and she did a good job in this movie. I also really liked that in like every scene, she had a different hairstyle. That's not something you really get to see highlighted in big Hollywood movies. So that was a nice breath of fresh air. So yeah, I thought it was good. It was fine. It worked. It got the job done. I was entertained. If you want a decent heist movie, it's not bad. You don't have to have seen Army of the Dead in order to enjoy this. If you're intrigued, go for it. It's not the worst thing in the world to watch for 2 hours. Alrighty, now today's rankings. First up, we got Last Night in Soho, sitting number 16 in the really like section. And then after that is Antlers, sitting number 28 in the quite like section. And then bringing up the rear is Army of Thieves, sitting at number 51 in the like section. And that is out of a total of 62 new movies so far this year. And that brings the grand total out of all the movies I've seen so far this year up to 306.